Well, if you were here last week in 2 Samuel, you probably are thinking, well, at least things can't get a lot worse for David. That, of course, is a segue for, yeah, they can. They can get worse. But the reason you might be thinking things can't get a lot worse for David is last week we looked at a story, and, I mean, there's nothing funny about it. It's just so train wreck crazy that it's, wow, I don't even know what else to do but laugh a little bit. But you have so much just dysfunction going on. And by the way, one of the figures we were introduced to last week and we will get to know this week, I mean, if I had any sort of inroad with a Steven Spielberg or any kind of big-time Hollywood, director, producer, I would say, please, somebody make a movie about Absalom. I love him. I hate him. But he is so amazingly cartoonish. And anyway, I would love to see somebody do a movie on Absalom. But anyways, so last week, it can't get any worse. Well, one of David's sons, a guy named Amnon, sexually assaulted one of David's daughters, a woman named Tamar. Nothing at all funny about that, but he was just infatuated with her, just consumed with thinking about her. And a friend of Amnon's, a friend, air quotes, this guy, a real clever, sneaky guy named Jonadab, sold Amnon on this plan. You're going to act like you're sick, and you're going to tell David, I'm really sick, I need for Tamar. I'll feel so much better if she comes in and prepares my meals in my bedroom and feeds me. And anyway, he assaulted her. Then one of David's sons, Absalom, killed this other one of David's sons, Amnon. So yeah, it was really, really bad last week, and it's about to get worse. So Absalom, we saw this a little bit last week at least, Absalom was just kind of waiting on Dad to do something. Discipline, punish, have a really stern talk with your son that raped my sister, please. And David, was kind of checked out, was kind of absent. I don't know what the psychologist would say, was maybe enabling Amnon's terrible behavior by he was angry with Amnon but didn't say anything, didn't do anything. And so Absalom waited 2 years. Finally was done and took his brother's life. Someone had to do something in Absalom's thinking, so he took care of things and killed his brother Amnon. So we're going to get into the details of this character tonight, Absalom. And I think he is, like I said, a person I am drawn to and repelled by, would look great on a Jersey Shore type of show, some kind of reality TV or a House of Cards like HBO series or something. This guy is nuts. I would call him, I don't know I'm not super into pop culture right now, but like a Kanye West / Miley Cyrus with a violent streak would be what I would call this guy. Very, we don't know how high this guy's IQ was or what kind of talents or skills he possessed, but he was narcissistic. He was very good looking. He was a celebrity in Israel, and he loved being a celebrity in Israel. If he were alive today, he would have tons of Instagram followers, tons of Twitter followers, would post lots of pictures of himself, I'm sure. But he had this violent streak. Here's other information, just kind of biographical information that we know about him. He was rich. Okay, he's David's son. He is a prince of Israel. He's a royal, okay? And he is really good looking. Now, it should not surprise you now that he is estranged from his father David. I mean, he killed the firstborn. He killed the crown prince, Amnon. And so they are now they're not talking. David, though, this is the thing. It's my son. It's my daughter. We love our kids. We love our kids, even when they mess up. And so David loved Absalom in spite of just a lot of character flaws. Absalom is still his son. This is one way, okay? Absalom does not love his dad, hates his father, but David loves his son. So what motivates, if you could kind of get in under the hood, Ross Perot passed away this week, like to talk about getting under the hood. If we kind of get under the hood and see what makes Absalom tick. What makes Absalom tick? Well, he was driven by hate, hated his father. He was driven by a desire for fame. He was driven by a desire for power. Those things were strong drivers in Absalom's heart. He had all the raw materials to kind of capture public imagination, to hold the attention of the masses. He had good looks. He had beautiful long hair. He had a royal bearing. He had money. He had a shrewd sense of political opportunism. So he is now poised to launch his latest scheme. The fall of his father is the goal, and his subsequent rise to the throne. That is the theme. I got to bring dad down, and I got to lift myself up. I will be the next king of Israel. So 2 Samuel 14, verses 25 to 26, the Bible does just a really good job of painting a picture of what this guy is like. In all Israel, okay, so just think about that. In all Israel, okay, there was not a man so highly praised for his handsome appearance as Absalom. From the top of his head to the sole of his foot, there was no blemish in him. I like this part. Whenever he cut the hair of his head, whenever he went to sports clips, he used to cut his hair from time to time when it became too heavy for him. I love that parenthetical there. Just too heavy. Can't handle it. He would weigh it, and its weight was 200 shekels by the royal standards. So this guy was very into, he was into himself. He loved what he saw when he looked in the mirror. And when he got his hair cut, he was so into himself, he would weigh it. He was kind of charting. Oh, wow, weighed a little more than last time. So celebrities tend to be really into themselves. At least that's kind of the stereotype, I guess. Sometimes they can be a bit eccentric, but I don't know anyone on their Twitter feed that's posting, okay, here's how much my hair weighed last time I got it cut. But Absalom was into that. So young royal, potential heir to the throne, looks like a male model. I mean, this is Fabio or whatever. And Absalom has loads of free time on his hands. Has loads of free time, has few responsibilities. So he is living as a rich young prince. What does he do with all of his free time? It's not like he wasted it. He invested his free time curating and developing his public persona, building his following. For example, 2 Samuel 18:18. During his lifetime, Absalom had taken a pillar and erected it in the King's Valley as a monument to himself. That's something he did. I'm going to erect this monument to myself. I know what's missing down there in the Valley of Kings, my beautiful face. So let's do this monument to me. And when a dude starts building monuments to himself, before he's actually even hadn't accomplished anything, we can safely deduce we have an ego at work. So let's get specific about precisely what in this age before cable television and Instagram, let's get specific about what a fellow would do if that fellow was into self-promotion. Here's a description, 2 Samuel 15. In the course of time, Absalom provided himself with a chariot and horses and with 50 men to run ahead of him. This would be called an entourage, with 50 men to run ahead of him. He would get up early and stand by the side of the road leading to the city gates. Whenever anyone came with a complaint to be placed before the king, before his father, for a decision, Absalom would call out to him, "What town are you from?" He would answer, "Your servant is from one of the tribes of Israel." Then Absalom would say to him, "Look, your claims, they're valid and proper. But there is no representative of the king to hear you." How about that? Absalom would add, "If only I were appointed judge in the land, then everyone who has a complaint or a case would come to me, and I would see that he gets justice." Also, whenever anyone approached him to bow down before him, Absalom would read, No, don't bow down before him. He would take hold of him and he would kiss him. Absalom behaved in this way toward all the Israelites who came to the king asking for justice, and so he stole the hearts of the men of Israel. This is a hustler. This guy's a player. "Oh no, don't bow down to me. Oh, you've got a complaint. Man, I can't believe that happened to you. Poor guy. Someone needs to make this right. The king is too busy, but someone like me, we can make things right. If I were king, things would be different. Your case would be decided like that." You don't need like a PhD in political science to figure out what's going on. Absalom is running for office. No, this is not a democracy in ancient Israel, but he is clearly running a campaign, okay? His dad is in office, and he wants to take his dad out. He wants his dad's job. He wants to put that royal crown on top of his gorgeous head of hair. So his political machine is really worthy of 20th century, 21st century American politics. Every move is carefully crafted, if you will, to kind of curate this public image, to make people love him, and it's all working. Right up in his magnificent chariot, arrival announced by these 50 forerunners, place himself at the busiest part of town, hear people's causes, give advice, give counsel, resolve problems, be kind of a fixer for everybody. The political campaign he kept up day after day after day, conquering more and more market share, more and more public opinion, better and better poll numbers. And it's funny, if you listen to the text, he did this for 4 years. I mean, he did it in like even a political cycle. And then after all this time executing this really crafty strategy to get this public following, finally it was go time. Finally it was go time. He planned a trip to Hebron. And you're thinking, Hebron? Right, if it's go time, shouldn't he be going to Jerusalem? No. You go to Hebron. Hebron is the place his father was anointed king. And so Absalom is going to go to the town where his father was anointed king. The town of Hebron served as a base of operations for David as he was ascending to the throne. And so there in this special location, he has the swelling, adoring masses led by his entourage. They declare him to be king. No, he didn't. Yes, he did. He did. Hey, Dad, King David, thanks for your service, but your services will no longer be required. I am the new self-declared king of Israel. And the people were all about it. I mean, the majority, not everybody, but most of them were all about this. They loved him. So here's how it went down. 2 Samuel 15, 7-14. At the end of 4 years, Absalom said to the king, he says to his dad, "Let me go to Hebron and fulfill a vow I made to the Lord. While your servant was living in Geshur in Aram, I made this vow. If the Lord takes me back to Jerusalem, I will worship the Lord in Hebron." I'm just going to go worship in Hebron. The king said to him, "Go in peace." So he went to Hebron. Then Absalom sent secret messengers throughout the tribes of Israel to say, "As soon as you hear the sound of trumpets, then you will say, 'Absalom is king in Hebron.' 200 men from Jerusalem accompanied Absalom. They had been invited as guests and went quite innocently, knowing nothing about this matter. While Absalom was offering sacrifices, he also sent for Ahithophel the Gilonite, David's counselor, to come from Gilead, his hometown. And so the conspiracy gained strength. And Absalom's following kept on increasing. A messenger came and told David, "The hearts of the men of Israel are with Absalom." Then David said to all his officials who were with him in Jerusalem, "Come, we must flee, or none of us will escape from Absalom. We must leave immediately, or he will move quickly to overtake us and bring ruin upon us and put the city to the sword." David was right about all of that, by the way. So here's what I think when I get to this part of the story. I think David had to have seen this coming, right? I mean, we know David. David is a smart guy. He is good at tactics. He could not have missed what Absalom, his son, had been up to. But here's the thing. This is what I talked about a minute ago. Parents, you can be completely objective and sober and clear-minded, but not always with your kids. It's different with your daughter. It's different with your son. We love our kids. We love our kids' flaws and all, and we should love our kids. But sometimes parents have blind spots when it comes to their children. And it appears that no, David didn't see this coming until it was right upon him, until it was too late. All of a sudden, we've got this rupture, this massive split in the kingdom of Israel. Prince Absalom has now declared himself to be the king, and he has a whole lot of people supporting his claim to the throne. After all, he's been helping solve their problems for years. After all, he's been erecting monuments to himself. He's been making public statements and all of this stuff. He looks like a king. He's got royal blood. And anyway, what has David done for them lately? You know how people are, right? What has he done for us lately? So it's 0 hour. Absalom makes his move. He takes advantage of a political situation that he and his handlers have spent 4 years creating. What will David do? What can David do? He loves his son deeply. He does not want to see harm befall Absalom. But David knows also that he, David, is the legitimate ruler of the country. He knows God has anointed him. He knows God has not rescinded that. So he also knows now we've got civil war. I don't want to hurt my son, but my son is declaring himself to be king. I'm the king. It's a bit of a problem. Talk about a tricky situation. He can't surrender the throne, but at the same time, he doesn't want to do anything that would hurt this rebellious, frankly awful son of his. I mean, imagine, I was just thinking this week, I don't know what would be a parallel, right? But I was thinking, imagine you woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning and you realize there's someone in your house. Someone has broken into the house. Someone is stealing all of your stuff. And I don't know how you roll, right? I don't know how you roll. But imagine, hypothetically, you take that 38 out of the bedside table and you go, you're going to defend your house. And you're ready to go. You've got one chambered and you're ready to go. You flip on the lights. It's your son. That situation was complicated to start with, and it got even more complicated. It was his son. It was his son trying to take everything that was his. It was his son that wanted to take his life as well. So what did David do? He gets all of his people together. And they run away. They run away. He left Jerusalem to Absalom and to Absalom's supporters. Absalom would not make the mistake of underestimating his father. David was getting older, but he respected his father at least as much as he knew his father was a great warrior and was a great king. So Absalom realized he needed to kill his father quickly. He needed to neutralize David. If he could do it quickly, right, just really quick, before everyone kind of discovered what exactly he was doing, he could get away with it and not lose the favor of the people. But it needed to happen fast. So David commanded his secret service, his loyal soldiers, his protectors. He commanded him, A, to protect him, which was their job. But B, he kind of threw this wrench in the thing and he said, I want you to protect me. I don't want you to hurt Absalom. Okay? I want you to protect me, but don't hurt the guy who's trying to kill me. Yeah, that's a tough ask. 2 Samuel 18:5. The king commanded Joab, remember General Joab, commanded Joab, Abishai, and Ittai, be gentle with the young man Absalom for my sake. And all the troops heard the king giving orders concerning Absalom to each of the commanders. Everyone knows that the king doesn't want us to hurt Absalom. So the insurrection, it did not last long. All right, we don't have a lot of detail to get into. With the Civil War was really not much. It's one of those kind of coup d'etat things like happened in Venezuela. It didn't happen. I mean, it almost happened. One of those things that like almost happened, didn't really happen. Very quickly it was over. The usurpers were routed. And Absalom, you may remember this story or you may have never heard this story. If you've ever seen this one on a flannel graph, you remember this. This is one of the reasons we need a movie about this. Because Absalom, remember this, he is trying to flee. He's trying to get away. David's soldiers are routing him. They're pursuing all of him and all of the rebels. And he gets hung on a tree. He's riding a mule. And this long flowing hair, I mean, seriously, it gets tangled up as he goes under some low branches. And he gets tangled up on this tree, and he's there hanging. He can't get loose from this tree. The mule, of course, kept on walking. And so he's dangling there. And a patrol of soldiers loyal to David sees Absalom. And in spite of the king's orders, they kill him. Now, you can have a pretty good argument about whether that was right or wrong. They're disobeying the king's orders, but the king's orders were pretty much nuts. So they kill him. 2 Samuel 18:33, the king was shaken. David is devastated. He went up to the room over the gateway and wept. And as he went, he said, oh, my son, Absalom, my son, my son, my son, Absalom. If only I had died instead of you. Oh, Absalom, my son, my son. Like I said, blind spots. Your son Absalom was a creep, man. David moved back to his home in Jerusalem, reinstalled the royal household, continued his reign as Israel's legitimate ruler, but David was shaken, consumed with grief. Consumed with grief over the death of his son. Even before the death of his son, he was grieving the death of that relationship as his son had abandoned him and then betrayed him and then tried to take his life. I mean, just so much to grieve over. People handle loss differently. David liked to journal, and this is what he journaled. We know it as Psalm 3. Psalm 3. It's a psalm of David when he fled from Absalom, his son. O Lord, how many are my foes? Many are rising against me. Many are saying of my soul, there is no salvation for him in God. But you, O Lord, are a shield about me, my glory, and the lifter of my head. I cried aloud to the Lord, and he answered me from his holy hill. I lay down and slept. I woke again, for the Lord sustained me. I will not be afraid of many thousands of people who have set themselves against me all around. Arise, O Lord, save me, O my God, for you strike all my enemies on the cheek. You break the teeth of the wicked. Salvation belongs to the Lord. Your blessing be on your people. So as we close tonight, we see once again that David was not flawless, but he was faithful. In his grief over his family, over a national crisis that wasn't his own doing, but in some ways he had a role in creating the conditions for this to happen. Let his boys, Amnon and Absalom, get away with all sorts of stuff. So David did what he always did, and it was good. He turned back to God. He cried out to the Lord. And so he returned to this calling that God had placed on his life, his mission to serve as leader of the nation. And in time, David was able to heal the wounds of this divided nation. He continued to expand the borders of Israel. But you're never the same after a moment like that. And so let's spend a little time praying. Let's bow our heads. We'll talk to God about this. Hopefully you haven't been through a situation exactly like this one, but you've probably faced some betrayal. You've probably had a situation where someone that you thought you could trust turned out not to be so trustworthy. And God, we bring all of that intensity before you tonight. With David, we say, all praise and all glory is due you. We deserve no praise. Let the good that we may do be turned into praise for you, not for us. And Lord, whatever we face, whatever dark dramas play out in our families, in our workplaces, in our schools, in our neighborhoods, in our lives, whatever it is, we lean on you. When we feel threatened, we cry out to you. Be a shield about me. Whenever we feel downcast, whenever we feel depressed, we call out to you. You are the lifter of my head. Whenever our hearts are gripped with fear, we remember that salvation belongs to you. Father, we come as humble children, as your humble children. We ask that you would be glorified through our lives, and that you will in turn take care of us and exalt us according to your grace and love. We pray this in the holy name of our King Jesus. Amen. Let's stand together. Let's worship.